Hey everybody, this is Tiffany with Boss on the Budget, and today we're going to talk about what to look for after you found a funder. Hey everybody, it's Tiffany here. So I just want to talk a little bit about what to look for after you found a funder, what information you need to know before you start writing the grant. Okay, so people who are pros at this know exactly what to look for when they're doing their search. But when you're starting out, you may not understand the things that you need to pay attention to, which will dictate whether or not you'll write this grant or how much effort you'll put into the grant. So I just wanted to go over a few things you should be looking out for once you found a potential funder that you can write a grant application or proposal for. So the first thing I would recommend that you do is to take a look at the information that's available online about the funder. So there's a form called 990. It's a tax form that every nonprofit has to fill out. Foundations are technically designated at the IRS as nonprofits too. They have a different form they fill out. It's the 990 PF form. So you find their 990 form and it gives you some information about who they've funded in the past. Sometimes it has information about their application process. It gives you the amount of grant awards they funded in the past. So it's a really, really rich resource that you should look out for to figure out just basic information about the funder, even things as basic as their address and their phone numbers, which is not always easy to find on the internet. The other thing I would recommend is if they do have a website, check out their website. Typically, they have all of their grant requirements. If they do have a website, they'll have everything kind of laid out for you to look at. So that's grant requirements, what we do fund, what we don't fund. This is the process that you need to complete. This is the link for the online application. And sometimes here's a list of the people we funded in the past and the types of grants that we fund. But also, it gives you information about who the founders are, who the current staff are, who the current board is, who are their board members, things that you just want to check out, and also links to their social media. So if you want to see what they're tweeting about, what they're interested in, if you want to see if you have like interest, you can go on their social media pages as well and figure out if you guys are kind of all in the same sphere. The second thing I would recommend is taking a really good look at who they've funded in the past. So you want to see how much money they've given. You want to see what type of organizations they fund. So if you're a grassroots organization and they typically fund old standing private organizations that have been around for hundreds of years, there may be a disconnect there. I'm not saying that you should not pursue anything. I'm just saying you should arm yourself with that information so you can figure out how to approach them. And you should never be afraid of reaching out to the funder, reaching out to the program officer or the portfolio manager to ask questions about, are we a good fit? And before you do that, you should do your research. And this is what we're talking about in the video today, what that research looks like. So you need to look at who they funded, the type of organizations they have previously been interested in, what types of grants they've given to them. Are they big or small? Are they typically program grants? Are they infrastructure grants? Are they capital grants where they like to fund big campaigns or, the renovation of property or the acquisition of property? Things like that you need to pay attention to when you are trying to figure out if this is a good fit for you. Also look at if they tend to fund the same people over and over again. So some funders don't do that. Some funders say, we only fund one time, don't come back. Some funders say, we'll fund you again, but wait a year. And some funders, there's no rhyme or reason to it that is exactly apparent to the public. But I say all that to say, make sure you know what their rhythm is and how they fund and who they like to fund. So if they typically fund the same organizations over and over again, that's probably an indication that they have strong ties to them. And it's going to be kind of hard to kind of break in if they have typically strong ties to the organizations that they continually give money to. Another good indication of that is if they don't accept unsolicited requests. So sometimes a funder will say, we don't take random requests from people. We only invite people to whom we give our grants to. So that's an indication that they have strong partnerships kind of behind the scenes, and your approach is much different than a funder who just will take applications from anyone and have it open to all. So I would suggest, for people who are like that, who have strong ties already, start figuring out what their interests are, trying to get in front of them, trying to figure out what types of organizations they're passionate about to see if you can kind of break in. That's a long-term goal now, but see if you can kind of break in kind of through that shell to figure out, okay, they would be interested in me, in our organization, if they saw, some videos or some pictures or reports of the things that we do. There are ways to kind of crack through that, but it just takes a while. That's for another video. But again, these are just basic things that you just need to understand before you approach a funder. Also figure out what their deadlines are and what their grant cycles are. So that's what I mean by their rhythm. So do they typically fund in January and July? Do they have do they open up the period for one time a year, or is it multiple times a year? Is it a rolling deadline where you can just apply whenever? So those are things you need to take in consideration when you're figuring out your overall plan around grant writing, to figure out when you want to attack different funders, when you want to apply for this funder versus this funder. But also you want to know that, to keep in mind, if there's a rolling deadline, you may want to kind of track how they fund, because they may run out of money typically at the end of their fiscal year, which could be the end of July, it could be the end of September, it could be the end of December. So kind of track their rhythm, because if you apply too late in the year, they may be saying to you, oh, we would have funded you if we knew about this earlier in our fiscal year. So that's another reason why you want to pay attention to how they move with their rhythm is, because it can really impact if you get the grant or not. Okay. So the last thing I want to say about what you need to look for after you found a funder, the things that you need to research before you write your grant, is what is the process to apply? Okay. So every funder is completely different. I'm just going to tell you this right now. So depending on the type of funder, whether it's a government agency, whether it's a private funder or a family foundation or a community foundation, all of their processes can be completely different. Some may only allow you to submit online. Some may only allow you to submit in person. Some will take it through the mail. If it's an online process, it may be completely frustrating to go through page after page after page. Your computer may crash. You may lose all your information. So that's another thing that you need to pay attention to. If you're mailing something in, do you need to have your application finished 2, 3, 4 days before the deadline to give you time to deliver it? Maybe you're doing next day delivery, or maybe you're hand delivering. You kind of need to factor all those things in before you start writing, because that will dictate how long you have to compile all the information you need for the grant application or the grant proposal. So pay attention to that, and pay attention to that first before you start writing, because it's the worst thing when you put all this time and energy into a proposal and then you get to the end and say, dang it, I may not have enough time to actually submit this thing. So pay attention to that before you start writing. Okay, so those are all of my tips for what to look out for or what to do once you found a funder before you start writing. If you have any questions for me, you can always email me at tiffany@bossonabudget.com. You can also join my free Facebook group. The link is in the description box below. Also, please don't forget to subscribe and share this video. And I wish you guys all of the best with your grant writing. Good luck.